beginning of your journey. So like, tell us, how did you first get introduced to wrestling? Like, did somebody
Yeah.
introduce it to you, or did you find it on your own? Like, how did it all get started for you?
For me, it was my boyfriend, Rodney Matthews.
Okay.
I'm not someone that I never watched wrestling growing up. I was never a fan of wrestling. Like I wasn't one of those kids at all. And then I started dating Rodney and he was into wrestling, like obsessed with it, and I never really cared. And then like 2 years into a relationship, he ended up having tickets to a SummerSlam tour and his
Mm.
friend couldn't go with him. So I was like, I'll go. And then I went and I was like, oh, cool. This is pretty awesome. And then I just got into watching it. And then we just watched it like all the time. We kept up on Raw and SmackDown like crazy. And then he started wrestling. And then I started going to all these shows with him and just, it was just fun. I was like, okay, this is a pretty fun world to be in.
Mhm.
So then I was just like, I was never going to do it. Everyone, I would tag along, I'd help set up the ring. Like, I loved hanging out with everyone at the shows because they were just so much fun. But anyone that asked me, like, when are you starting wrestling? I'm like, never. Like, I could never do it. I'm not doing it. That's terrifying. And
Mhm.
then COVID hit and I was helping him practice a bit. And I was like, okay, maybe. And then I started doing some classes with Tyson and I haven't stopped since.
Oh wow. And what
Yeah.
made you like fall in love with like the first time actually going to a wrestling show? Like, what made you fall in love with it? Like, was it the wrestlers, the storytelling, the crowd? Like, what made you like fall in love with
I think it was the wrestlers.
it?
For me
Mm.
it was like I became like obsessed and like just loved Enzo Amore. Enzo and Big Cass. Like
Yeah.
they got me hooked. Like that as someone that I didn't care about wrestling. I didn't know I don't know what kind of moves they're doing. They were
Mm.
hilarious. So like
Yeah.
hooking onto them as characters was what got me.
What school did you train at, and who was your coach?
So I trained at the Wrestling Factory. So it's the Tyson
Oh, okay.
Dukes Wrestling Factory
Mm.
when it was open. So I trained there with Tyson. And then now we're training with him privately. So he runs out of Hard Knocks Wrestling Academy right
Mm.
now. So we train there and just kind of privately with him. And yeah, he's just been my number one trainer.
Mm. And what was like the first day of like going to wrestling school? Like, what was the whole experience like for you? Like your first day going
My first day, it was the summer and it was right when like COVID, like the very first time getting out of lockdown, like when lockdown was like super intense and we just got out of it, wrestling started and it was like so hot. It was like peak summer and we had to wear our masks and there was no wrestling ring. He just had us start with like a ton of conditioning. So it was just like crazy workouts. And then it was just repetitive chain. So like it
there?
was just like 30 minutes of locking up, repeat, lock up, repeat. Like I like got bruises and my arm was swollen from like the girl's collarbone just from locking
Mm.
up so much. And it was like masks. It was literally like you were being waterboarded.
Mm.
And it wasn't on purpose. It was literally just because we had to wear masks and it was so damn
Mm.
hot. That was
Uh,
like that was my starting with wrestling was that. It was tough.
and what was also like having like, especially like Tyson, such a veteran, he's
Yeah.
done so many things. What was it also like working with him and having him as your coach? Like, what was it like working with him?
Working with Tyson, he's amazing. I He is such a great trainer in the way of explaining to you why you're doing this movement and how it makes sense. So rather than just like
Mm-hmm.
doing something and be like, that looks cool, like he's like, okay, do this though, and this is why it makes sense. Like he shows you why you're doing it, what joints you're moving and why it looks so good. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's such a great trainer that he goes so in depth and he just gives you a lot of confidence in things like just just go for it and then usually you end up doing what he told you to do and you're like, oh crap, I guess I could do that. Yeah.
Was there like an advice or like advice that he's giving you that about the business or about wrestling that still keeps with you to today? Like you still think about?
With it, I've never really got like advice from him. I think like we're always just joking around.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Tyson, it's just always a joke. We've never had like a serious kind of like getting advice from him. It's always just like train, joke around, train, joking around. But yeah, like my first match, I had my debut and it was because of Tyson. I went to training and I showed up and he was like, hey, like, do you want to have a match at the show? And I was like, are you like, I'm not going to say no, but I was terrified. I was like, I don't think I'm ready. No way. I'm not ready. Like I had a month's notice and like I had just gotten back from training after another lockdown and just, yeah, he had so much confidence in me. And we showed up at the show and he was also booked and I'm getting ready to go out for my match. And he came up to me and he's like, you should not be having your debut in front of this many people. He didn't realize, yeah, he was like, he didn't realize how like the show was packed. Like we were so excited, but like the debut, it was great. It was amazing. And that was just, it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Felt good that like there was the confidence in like putting me on that show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like shit like that, it's just always joking around,
On
yeah.
CWF Canada.
Yeah.
Talk about the experience. How did that come about, you having your match over there? And, what was the whole experience like wrestling for CWF?
So for CWF, I've wrestled for them a few times now. I made my debut. It was against CC Galaviz as well. So it was at CWF with Women's Revolution Wrestling, and it just happened. We've been there before, so I'd gone there before COVID with Rodney and stuff before I wrestled, and then they had asked me like for Revolution if I wanted to ref, and I was like, I'm not comfortable reffing, but I am wrestling now. And then they're like, oh wow, like that's awesome. And then they asked me to come in for the first round for the tournament at CWF, and that was pretty fun. I did have to cut a promo for that, like a live one, which like I was pretty confident going into it, like for a live promo. I was like, oh yeah, like I'm good, I'll be fine. And then I got out there and I just was like repeating myself, and I was like, oh no, I had way too much confidence in being able to just like talk on the mic. And I was like, I'm repeating the same thing like over and over. I was like, oh my God, I need more work on this. So yeah, I like cut a promo, had the match, and then I wrestled. So yeah, I've wrestled CC Galaviz for CWF. I've wrestled Jody Threat for CWF, Divya, and I'm supposed to be wrestling on January 2nd. Hopefully everything holds up for us.
And also we'll see that if it's Chris Thorne, right? That still runs CWF Canada?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was like also working with him?
Working with Chris Thorne is great. Chris Thorne is he's very open to ideas. So while you're planning for the show, things can change in a second. You never really know what's going on until like right before, because things change, and he's just so open to ideas that like I went to a show on Thanksgiving. So we went there. It was Thanksgiving Sunday in Canada, and we showed up, and then I didn't have a match going there. I was just showing up. And then all of a sudden I had a match against Mr. Atlantis, because like Chris Thorne was like, this would be awesome. He's like, I'm going to put you against Mr. Atlantis. So like stuff like that, where you just show up and then all of a sudden you're doing like the funnest kind of matches that you didn't expect to have. He's a fun guy to work for.
Oh yeah. Like I hear stories because like I recently, like I had like Ryan Swift on the podcast. I also had Jesse Bieber on the podcast.
Great.
And yeah, they always say so many stories about him, and it's just awesome. Especially with CLF too, they're doing big things. Especially like recently, they had like Alexander Wrestling and Cody Deaner. So, it's been really good for CWF.
Yeah. Oh, it's been awesome. Yeah, Resolution they had was great
Yeah.
too. And yeah, I was just at their Adrenaline show in, was that early December? Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I was at Adrenaline. I wrestled Laurel Cassidy on that one. That was fun. But yeah, their shows are amazing. Like their production it's immaculate, and the setup is so fun. Like going and wrestling there is just a blast. It's a really fun environment.
Oh yeah. Also, want to get your opinion, but what is your thoughts, especially with intergender wrestling? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
I love intergender wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think it's great. Like, obviously, on the side of logistics, and depending on what kind of fan you are, if you're a fan where you want it to be more realistic, obviously intergender wrestling isn't always going to be that for you. But as a wrestler, I love doing it. The majority of people that I train with are men, and it's fun. They bring different things to the table than working with women, because they're, a lot of the women are the same size. So with men, you get a lot more of a variety when it comes to it. And but like, even like I had a match with Mr. Atlantis, and seeing the way a crowd pops for seeing a man and a woman like get into it, and, even like exchanging like words. I love that. It gets such a different reaction.
Oh yeah, and especially with now, because like the only company I can really think of that's actually has been doing that a lot is Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
Which is also really cool, because even like with watching matches, even like Tessa Blanchard when she was the champion and she was having all these great matches with all these people, it just shows, this is not how it was back then. Now it's, women's wrestling, are wrestlers, and they can do the same things as men, even better.
Yeah, like seeing, the athletics. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It's all about how athletic you are, and like how knowledgeable you are about what you're doing. Yeah.
Watches and wants to become a professional wrestler. What advice could you give to someone that wants to pursue in this business?
Advice would probably be just do it. Like, it's challenging, but everything's challenging. There's no reason to not try it out. And like, worst case, you decide it's too hard for you, but until you try it, like, you don't know. And like, you may end up just being freaking amazing at it. Like, I was terrified. I was like the kind of person that I didn't even do a flip on a trampoline. And now I'm wrestling, and I'm like taking bumps and like suplexes and stuff. And that was something that I wouldn't do that on a trampoline. So things that you think you should write off for yourself because you think you can't do it, just screw it and try it out. So worth it.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Yeah, great advice. Yeah, I agree. Because like, even like Rich and I will go to shows, and I always just like think like, I can never do that. I can never ring it now. It's like, I don't even have the voice for, like, I can never do it. And then when I do it, I'm like, oh yeah, like,
Yeah. Yeah, you just gotta do it.
Yeah. Just, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, with Rich is gonna do he's gonna make his debut as a manager. Is there any advice you can give to him that's gonna be a manager that you can give to him?
Yeah. For me as a manager, I'm like, I'm bringing out my inner Paul Heyman.
Yeah,
that's all I can think. Is like when I manage Rodney Matthews, I have rings on my fingers. My hands are so swollen from clapping and like keeping that crowd going that I can't get my rings back on. My voice is gone. Like, keep the energy up, keep the crowd going, and just overall expressions. Facial expressions for everything. Paul Heyman it. Get your eyes going, like fucking lose your mind with your expressions. That's all I think of is just Paul Heyman.
Yeah. No, because we've been watching like different like videos on YouTube, and Alex was saying you gotta check Paul Heyman, and he was saying Jim Cornette and other names. And when I saw Paul Heyman, I'm like, what you said, like his expressions, like he's just in ringside, but he gets so much attention and so much like
Yeah.
hate towards him. Like it works out. Like even
Yeah.
him just slamming his hands on the canvas, he's like getting all his attention, which is like awesome.
Yeah. He can get so much across in just his facial expressions and
Yeah.
reacting to everything that's happening. Like
Yeah.
even if you're not the one people are watching, pretend you are with the way you're reacting. Like it doesn't even matter. Like drop to your knees, like you're losing your mind, you know? Go ballistic.
No, like
And just
exactly
keep
like
the energy up.
no, for sure. I appreciate it. No, you saying that right now, I'm picturing when Lesnar defeated Undertaker WrestleMania and like Heyman's expression where his hands were against his face and he couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. Like that, I remember that more than like the finish, just his reaction.
Yeah.
Because even he said like, I'm, you're managing, you have to be like the ultimate fan. He's like he's your guy, so you have to have like your reaction has to be like 10 times more than the fans, which is true.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And like, yeah, even if you don't think people are watching you, people are watching you.
Yeah.
Have a reaction. Always have some reaction.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and good luck. I'm sure you'll do great.
I appreciate it.
It's a really fun thing to do. So you're just